And then heard it again, doom. And right when I heard the second one, I knew exactly what it was. And so I hopped up out of bed. And by the time I got out of bed to the top of the stairs, they were already at the top of the stairs. Said, get on the ground, you know. So I'm like, it's like a nightmare, man. It really was. So Daddy's little girl is, you know, my daughter Lanesha, Pookie. She was 5 years old at the time. And so she saw it all go down, you know, from a 5-year-old's point of view. So it was one of the most humiliating points in my life. Because I'm lying on my stomach in the bathroom, right? And I got cops all over the place and this and that, right? And I'll never forget this. One cop walks in to the bathroom and he goes, you a Knowles? And I said, yeah. He said, man, what are you doing? I said, I don't know, man. I mean, that's how our name permeates through this community. Like, you know, we're not known for that. And so Daddy's little girl captures that day where a 5-year-old watches her father, watches these, you know, cops. And I use Looney Tunes as a metaphor. So I say, you know, uniformed men storm upstairs waving shiny black shooters, right? Because she don't know that they're guns, you know? And so it was, and it ends with, you know, droplets of shame coursing my cheek and men with 5-star shining pieces of silver pinned to chest take her father away. And that day was the most humiliating day of my life, man, you know? But yeah, that was that day. And then I was in the police station, you know, and I'm sitting in the whole time. I got my whole story straight, you know, because, you know, I figured they're going to come, you know, try to pressure me, you know, to snitch and all that stuff. Lo and behold, I was already snitched on. So, you know, they never asked me anything, which I found weird, but I figured it out. And so from the police station, I went to the courthouse, standing in front of the judge, and, you know, I could arraign all that stuff from the courthouse to Montville, Corrigan. You know, so I'm at Corrigan now. This is all in the day. I'm at Corrigan because they came at like 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
So I'm at Corrigan, and I'm sitting there. I'm in the holding cell, and I'm looking around, and everybody in there looks just like me. You know, dark skin, Tim's, polo, hill figure. You know. I like to rock Jabos, you know, and guess, you know, jean outfits. But yeah, I realized then I was just like, one, this is not for me, and two, it's bigger, you know, bigger than me. And they tried to put me in population, and the guy was like, nah, don't put him in population. His family's coming to get him, you know, his mother's coming to get him after she gets out of church. So I had to wait. Until church was over. Because nothing comes between God and a black woman. You know what I'm saying? So
Guess not.
that was that day, man. Yeah, that was one of the most, actually probably the most humiliating day of my life. Nisi, you would call weed Fuduma. You were the lone orator of a dead discourse. I remember how I would sell you poison and watch you and my brother cook it, smoke it, and fiend for more. I watched your youngest son, barely 8, run back and forth, desperately seeking your attention, while the strange man, who only came around twice a month, stole his lunch money from your hand. That's what you're referring to. And yeah, definitely, you know, in hindsight and recollect, you know, but I would tell myself, I would justify it at the time, you know, selling drugs to my brothers or family members, you know, or family friends and family friends. I justify it by like, well, they're gonna get it from somewhere else. It might be for me, you know. That money's gonna go somewhere else, so you know, I'd rather take it, you know. And so that has been something that's carried with me for a long time. And it wasn't until the artistry of poetry that really helped me to release those demons, right? Because they were heavy. They were real heavy. And so the poetry has helped me to actually come to terms with those decisions that I made at that time in my life. And the new manuscript that I'm working on, Sinking in Moonlight Alone, I actually have a poem that I'm talking to the child of a person that I used to sell to and so forth, because of what my actions, right, or my behaviors, how that would have affected that particular child, like the child in this poem here.
Oh wow! And so how did that experience of that day and even after that day, how did that define your hoodie moment? How did that make you realize that you have this covering over you, that you're battling these demons, your mind is clogged? How did it really play into you realizing like, yo, I need to take my hood, pull it back, and be a new man?
Yeah, well, it was that's my one-day prison story, right? Because I went to prison for 1 day, and it's all it took, man. It took 1 day. I mean, because I never got into trouble before that. I had no record, never been arrested, nothing, and I really haven't been arrested since,
I have a question. So
yeah, go ahead.
If things were to play out differently and you didn't have Pookie, would you have gone back to the same behavior after prison?
That's a good one.
Yeah, well, I had to, actually. I did, because I got arrested in 95, and I sold my last, little Sage 20 in 1998. So 3 years after, I still hustled and felt like I had to. I was absolutely paranoid. I didn't want to, but I'll give you a reason why. First, my uncle, your uncle, my brother Michael took me out of here to Jersey right after it happened. It's like, yo, you coming to Jersey with me? You're gonna be working, and da-da-da. So I went to Jersey for like 3 months or so, and it didn't work out, and I came back home, and I had court dates and so forth, and so I went to a court date. I had a fine, so what happened was I pled to. They wanted to get me on possession and intent to sell, but what happened is that they made up a bogus warrant. So it took like 4 months to get the warrant from them, and the warrant said that I was selling weed out of my daughter's mother's house, and and then they had an informant come in to buy weed for me, and they were testing the weed around the corner. So I'm reading this warrant, and I'm just like, wow, they can really just talk about narrative and storytelling. Like, I was like, wow. Like, and the ironic thing is, if I'd have went home to my house that night and they'd have got me at my house that night, I'd probably be just getting out of prison right now. And so, I was actually, I just lost my train of thought because I just thought about that. You said a defining moment?
Yes.
So yeah, I had to. So I was going to court. I had a $1,500 fine, I think, like that, because I was stacking money. I stacked money, and it went all on lawyer fees, right? Because the thing about, they transferred me to New London Superior Court, and they said when you go to that court, Superior Court A, you either doing some time or you spending some money, and sure enough, so I had a fine, and I stopped hustling. And I went to court, and I was like, I don't have all the money for the fine, right? I had like half of it, and so what the judge did was he took the half that I gave him, right? He locked me up. They put me downstairs in the holding cell in the courthouse, and then used that money as my bail money to bail myself out. And I was like, and then my lawyer said to me, he said, next time you come to court, you better have all that money. So what was I gonna do? So I went back to the streets, and I was absolutely paranoid. It was a whole different feeling, a whole different world, and so many sleepless nights. But I was able. That was my hoodie defining moment as to I need to do something else. And I was finishing school. I went back to school. I studied criminal justice and so forth, because I realized after I pled, guilty and this and that, how the system just really is designed to really, it's modern day slavery. And so I was able to emancipate myself from that.
Wow, that's a deep
knowledge is power.